administrators, principals for being here and giving such impassioned comments. It is welcomed, but I get the sense that you're preaching to the choir here. I think that if we hope to get this $870,000 budget override passed, we need a primer. We all understand No Child Left Behind. We all understand the requirements involved in a public education system right now. But my parents do not understand that. My mother is 87 years old, healthy, God bless her. My father is 90. It's not your mother's one-house schoolroom anymore. So a primer somehow, Christine, that explains, really and truly explains what you go through. I don't know how you communicate that to the community. I am not for a minute suggesting I become chair of this committee. But the point is,
So, you're welcome.
the point is, you all know what you're all talking about. We understand it. The community at large, we know who we're talking about. Do not understand what's involved in this. You know, okay, why is art and music so important? Why is PE so important? It is important. Mr. Hodges, I agree with you. A child is going to smile when they have these kinds of programs. My daughter was devastated that she's in 6th grade at the middle school, that the cultural class is gone. Food, gone. Can't do this anymore. Her first period on Monday, every Monday, is gym. She hates it. I have to tell you, Mom, I'm still tired. I don't want to do, but the point, I guess my point is that we all have to give a little bit of a broader view to the broader community, and we know who we're talking about. We all understand the importance of these things. And my second point is, are we involving our teachers somehow in this dialogue? I've had some conversations with a few teachers that would be more than willing to stand in front of a microphone, not here, but at town meeting. Is there any way that we can, is there something that does not let them get involved in this process and give some pleas? Well, how do we get that started? You're going to tell me, right?
Somebody should ask them, if you're no Reading resident, you belong in town meeting.
Well, what if they're not a resident? They could be invited as a guest to town meeting.
Yeah, they can be admitted.
And get up and say, I have 35 kids in my, whatever, I have kids in all 3 levels of school, the high school, the middle school, the elementary school. There are teachers that really are frustrated. You guys are frustrated. Can we not have you guys give the same comments to town meeting? You will convince people. You will convince older people in this town. I feel for these people on fixed incomes. But there's got to be a way to bring it down to a level that makes them understand that it is not their education system. It's a new place for these kids, and they deserve every opportunity. Special ed kids, I am telling you, there are people that do not understand the requirements that this town faces with these kids. Christine, you get the bills. There are people who do not understand that. And we're talking to ourselves, but we need to really bring it down to a level that people really understand what this is all about. And I just feel that we don't. We don't do a good job of that. And we need to do a better job of really bringing it to a much simpler discussion and saying, you know, this is what is required now by state and federal law. This is what's required. We don't do a good job of explaining that to people. So.
I think parent board should be used too more for this endeavor. There's a group that's formed, they have access, especially at the elementary level, to teachers' input, you know.
Well, I would love to
try
see
and
all of our
motivate them.
principals at town meeting and give the same presentation to town meeting and that they did tonight. I really do. I just, you know, thanks.
Good comments, Laurie, thanks. Mr. Derby, and then we have someone back here, and then Marcy.
Put this on a slightly different focus. I'm hearing a number of people around town saying, I'll support the schools and I'll vote for an override, but I don't think you'll get the public as a whole to support it. that's a bit of, that's a two-edged sword, isn't it? If they're going to support it, and they don't know specifically people who won't, they're just afraid it won't happen, maybe there is enough support out there. And I think some of the things that we have to remind people, even though the economy is difficult right now, one of the ways you turn an economy around is by making intelligent investments. The GI Bill, when World War II was over, was one of the best things this country has ever done. The state has to be willing to step up and raise taxes as need be to make the investments in education. And this community has to make the investment in education. People have talked about how our children will be the leaders of the next generation, only if they're educated. The reason we have to do more in education today is not simply because there are state and federal laws, but because our children will not be able to be contributing adults in the society of the future if they're not better educated than we were. Society is changing at every turn, and every person in our society knows that. We joke about people who can't work the clickers on their TVs because they've gotten too complex. There isn't anyone who doesn't understand how society is changing. There isn't anyone who doesn't know in his heart that we have to prepare our children to deal with those changes. And if we carry the message to the townspeople that we are currently shortchanging our children because enrollment growth in the schools has outstripped our ability under Proposition 2.5 to keep up with the legitimate needs of a modern education, I think this community will rally and provide the support for our children that we've always provided.
A gentleman back there? Yeah.
My name's Ed Alter, and I have two small children and at the little school. My family and I moved here about 3 years ago. And as I'm sure probably a lot of people here, we moved here because of the school system. We did a lot of research before we moved here, and the school system was priority number one. And I'll tell you right now, if these cuts had happened before we moved here, we wouldn't be here now. And it's really frustrating to me that we're sitting here talking about, well, what cuts, would you like to put back? It's cut the bits, but which bit would you like to put back so that we can still have an inadequate education, but, it won't be as inadequate. It's ridiculous, and I don't understand why, and I'm a little ignorant on the politics of it all, but I guess I don't understand why this type of thing every year has to be put up, why this has to be an override issue. Why can't we just have a full education with all the classes, full day school every day, and that's a given, it should be guaranteed. I don't understand why that's not an option. I realize that there are other things that contribute to the budget, and I realize that there's fire and police, and they're all extremely important, but how is it that all these other communities that are in the same strapped situation are able to do it, but we're not? It is beyond me. And one more thing I'd like to say is that, for anybody out there who doesn't have children in the school system, if there's an opportunity cost here. If you're not providing a good education, people aren't going to move to the town. And there might even be people who are moving out of town because of the school system. And that's tax money that's gone, and that's only going to make things worse. So, that's all I'd like to say, and I'd like the people to consider that when we go to town meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Before I go to Marcy, quickly an answer, and I think Dr. Trouton stated it before. One thing about the surrounding communities, they're all starting at a much higher level. So you can see them, Linfield or other towns cutting, but they have so much more. They're just getting to the skin. They're not to the muscle. They're not to the bone. We're getting close to the bone, and I think that's the difference. When Dr. Trouton talks about North Reading, Linfield High School offering more AP courses, and it's a smaller school than North Reading High School. Probably 100 students fewer right now, maybe even more. Yet they offer more courses in advanced placement than we do. And that's the issue. So they could cut 2 or 3 advanced placement courses and people would notice, but it would just maybe be 2 or 3 that have maybe 5 or 6 kids in them. Remember last year, Lexington had a budget problem. They were all up in arms. They were gonna have to cut Chinese language lessons out of their elementary schools. How horrible. We have 2 languages in our high school, and they're teaching Chinese in elementary grades in Lexington. Now, I'm not proposing that tonight. I'm just making the point. Dr. Troughton would be. Because he came from China, he was there for 2 months, I said 2 years, 2 weeks. It was a long time.
We were looking for him.
But I guess the point is that we're starting from such a low base that when we have to cut anything, it's bone. And that's one point I want to make.
Even Wilmington, Bill Assis
Right.
pointed out earlier, Wilmington's got free all-day kindergarten. If they have to cut, they'll start charging a fee. You know, we're maxed out on fees, and we've got nothing left to cut.
Marcy?
Thank you. Marcy Bailey. There's so much tonight I want to address. I'll try to keep it simple. I think in the end, this is all about balance. It's the balance between general government and the school system. It's the balance between regular education, special education. When there's not a big enough pot to go around, you have to balance those needs as best as possible to serve as large a population as possible. That is my goal as a member of North Reading United for Education and Stand for Children, to try to make that happen. The override, obviously, I would support that, and I hope that as many people as possible do. But we can't count on that. And what we can count on is the funds that are available across the school department and general government. What we can take responsibility for is using those as best as possible. So to address, before anyone else leaves this evening, to address the balance between general government and schools, I would ask that everyone here in this room join me and others of us who I know will be there at the Board of Selectmen meeting on this Wednesday at 7 p.m. in Town Hall. Please come, please bring 5 friends, and please ask our Board of Selectmen, which Mr. Messeri has done an outstanding job chairing and trying to bring balance to, please ask them to bring balance to general government and education in North Reading. Because I would argue, as goes the health of the school system, goes the health of the town. I've heard so many people in the room tonight say, I'm not sure if I would move here. I've lived here 12 years. I've been a member of the Board of Selectmen. I take more pride in this town than in anything else, you know, aside from my family in my life. And I don't know if I would move to North Reading if I had the young children that I did 12 years ago. I'm not going to leave, but I want everyone to come to North Reading to see what a wonderful town this is. And it will speak to the overall health of our town and the economic health of its residents, as will speak to the housing values ultimately and the kind of pride we can take in our tax base. For the school committee, balance in the budget. I heard a lot about students with special needs, students who are maybe on the cusp. One thing I didn't hear about was the bright students. I would bet that of those 18% of students that leave the school between 8th and 9th grade, many of those are students who excel academically and maybe their families do not feel they can do that in North Reading. We do not want to lose our best and brightest. I do not want to see my daughter's education and other students in regular education their regular education be reduced at the expense of something else in the budget. I understand that there are mandates and the special needs, the students with special needs, obviously, that's a priority, but when you look at it and maybe the children are on the cusp, please look at a balance among that. Maybe art, music, phys ed will address, some student needs when students are on the cusp, or acting out in a classroom if they get that release. Maybe, that will address some needs. So I would ask you to look at the balance between the students with special needs and typically developing students. I heard Christine Dianju say, as you decrease regular education, special education needs and costs increase. I would ask you as a committee to look across and find, it's a continuum, but find that best balance. And again, please everyone, join the Board of Selectmen, join a town meeting asking for a balance for our town. There's not enough money, but that's the only way we're going to come out winners at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.